All right, we are live for our third webinar on digital citizenship in this special time of distance learning. My name is Abby.
And I'm Jenna, and we are two academic technology specialists at the Santa Clara County Office of Education.
And we welcome you to this new time. Today we are going over 3 key tips that we think every educator should know as they are navigating this new world of distance learning for their students and possibly getting onto some of these apps for the first time and engaging their students in responsible digital use.
Yeah. So we will go through our 3 tips and we will pause for some questions and time for reflection after each. And our first tip is to vet your apps.
So this really comes out of like this new time. So I'm sure all of you have been on social media, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of resource lists that have been circulating. And on top of that, so many, and this is a good thing, so many ed tech companies are offering their services for free, especially as schools navigate this, these new systems. But we also want to make sure that the tools that we are using with our students are following all the laws and regulations for the state and federal, that state and federal people put in place so that we can protect the data privacy of our students and our families. And so Jenna is going to walk us through a little bit of how you could do that.
Yeah, so we have this whole database, and this is the Search Alliance website, and we can do a couple of different searches for different tools that we might use with students, and there are various ways that you can search for tools. First, I'm going to show you different districts. So one school district in our county that's kind of been leading the way for this has been the Oak Grove School District. They've put in a lot of work in helping put this site together and gather resources. So I'm going to actually do a search by district and look for Oak Grove. And
so Jen is on the Student Data Privacy Consortium website, and this has been a group of educators and a group of lawyers and all of the people that are high above us that are making sure that people that are working at these vendors are being compliant. And they've created this list of districts who are trying to work with vendors and vendors who are trying to work with schools to see which vendors are safe for our students and families.
Yeah, thanks. So, well, let's just first search by Oak Grove, and we can see all of the tools that they are using in their school district, and they've gone through and contacted all of these different vendors and collected. Abby, can you explain what Exhibit E is?
So we've been listening to these fellows for quite a while in our meetings. And so how this all came about is that way before COVID-19, it had been the Wild West in their district. And all of these teachers wanted to use all these tools. And they were the folks at the district office saying, put a pause on this first, and let's see if these tools are safe for our students. So they started this process contacting vendors one by one. And as they continue to refine their process, they said, well, is there an easier way for districts to do this? Because this is a lot of work, and we're a team of 3 even, and what if there's only one person at a district doing this work? So they devised, with a lot of help, what's called an Exhibit E contract. So if a vendor signs on to an Exhibit E contract, they are saying that they will abide by all state and federal regulations when it comes to student data privacy. What is great about this is if they sign this Exhibit E, let's say District A signed an Exhibit E with this vendor. if District B wants to sign with this vendor, all they have to do is sign that Exhibit E, and it applies to them as well. So they're cutting out all of that middle work of having to negotiate between each vendor and each district. And so if you see an Exhibit E listed under a vendor, then you can see that in another district, you can safely tell that that vendor will comply to the rules that you want your apps the students and the teachers use to be safe. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. So in here, you're going to see that there are vendors who have signed that Exhibit E, and there are also vendors that have not been approved. So there'll be some notes here. You'll also see what grade level, and this is actually a K-8 district. So you're going to see a lot of that. And with this school district, you're going to see a huge long list of vendors that they have contacted. So that's one way to do a search from this website. If you're looking for a specific tool, you could also go and search by company name. So if you wanted to select a company, let me think about one. So I'm gonna take a look at Freckle and see they have Exhibit E here, and that it's active in a couple of different districts. So that's a way for you to search by district. So that's one great resource that you can use. And another resource where you can find some privacy evaluations is Common Sense. And so if you go to Common Sense Education, they have a page where they give evaluations of different vendors. So that's another really great resource. Am I missing anything?
No, I think the main point is that make sure that the apps and the tools that you're using are going to be safe for your students. As we know through our dealings with Facebook and Google and all of the different apps that adults we are on, we know that our data is kind of free flowing through the world now because of maybe we haven't ourselves been vetting our own apps. And so it's especially important that we are diligent when we're using apps with our students as well. So I think we're ready for our first food for thought.
Sure, here's our first question. What apps have your students or children started to use that you need to vet?
So at this time, we invite you to participate either in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. This is also another opportunity if you have a question already or another comment to add. So one app that I'm seeing a lot of people rely on is the Epic app. The Epic app, if you don't know about it, is an app where students can go and read books, which I think teachers would really love. In the past, I know that there have been issues with them signing the Exhibit E, so I would definitely want to go in and see where they are in that process. It's the Epic app. And I see, Zoom and Nearpod from the chat. Yeah, everyone's on Zoom now. I feel like everyone in this chat's probably been in 3 Zooms already today. So how safe is that for students and our families?
Some other apps that I've been actually thinking about are, I did a FaceTime with my dad yesterday, and he was telling me that my niece, who is 4 now, she's been using Khan Academy Kids, and she loves learning on that platform. So that would be a good one for me to look up and see, if when she logs on to that app, it is the data protected. So that's just, I think, an important thing to do when you start to get your kids onto any new app. Are there any other things? Let's see. Wonderopolis.
Yeah, it's often those free apps that are cause the most issues because that's how they get their money. Most likely is that they're collecting data from students and families so they can sell that data somewhere else if they're free. Oh yeah, Wonderopolis. We'll have to look into that one and see.
Yeah. So, and as a teacher, you know, if you're going to be recommending apps to your students, make sure that you look into that before you put those apps on your resource list.
You're right, Gail. Free isn't really free at all. Not at all. Isn't that creepy? Like I don't know how many times that I've said something around someone else, and then on Facebook or Instagram, I get the ad for that thing. That's insane. I don't understand how. Well, I understand how it happens, but it's just the precision of that and the quickness of that happening is very spooky and scary. You're so true. We are the product when it is the free app. So it's another reminder that is even more so important that we are diligent in which apps our students are using, especially when they're free. Thank you. So our second tool, our second tip is we really need to pay attention to helping students communicate respectfully. So as we are going to distance learning and every student is now doing their own learning from their home or certainly not from a classroom, and they're engaging in some of these apps like Seesaw or Google Classroom and sometimes doing that for the first time. How can we continue to have these digital citizenship moments and conversations with them about how to be respectful online?
Yeah, so we have a few tips for you. So no matter what platform that you're using, go ahead and take a look into the settings and see what settings there are that can be manipulated. So in the screenshot that I have on this slide, this is a screenshot of Seesaw, which is a digital portfolio app. And now, you know, a lot of teachers are using it for distance learning. But if you take a look into the settings, you can see that you can turn on and off if you want students to see each other's work. If you want teacher approval, so if a student submits work, I recommend that you have that on, because then it goes to you first and you get to see it and approve it. And then if it's approved, then it goes into the feed for other students to see. And I think another important one here is for Seesaw, what's really great about it is that you can enable family access. So that would be allowing parents to be connected to their students' account. So take a look at the settings and be familiar with them, and then you can manipulate them, and then maybe open things up when you feel like your students are ready. I think, did I talk about, students' likes and comments? You might actually not want to have your students commenting on each other's work right away until you actually have that time to set, some clear expectations before doing an activity like that.
And that's our second point here. Do set clear expectations. Just as you would in your classroom, as you're asking your students to communicate with each other, have a conversation with them, whether that is a YouTube video that you post or a link that you post or a document that you post saying, here, these are the expectations that I have of you when you're working online and you're communicating with other students. I think the more familiar you are with the platform that you're using, the more you can say about what the norms might be. So we're all in a Zoom right now, and we have really open access. in the Zoom chat, anyone can message to anyone privately. So I know that that's a setting that maybe I wouldn't if I was using Zoom, which is not recommended. But if I was using Zoom to teach with students, I would not have that turned on just right away. And then I might have some norms about, okay, well, what kind of comments are appropriate when we are using group chat? For sure, your students are going to say hello to each other. That's, I think, in this time when maybe some of the students feel very isolated, I think absolutely let that happen. But as you get deeper into this teaching online and teaching remotely, what conversations would you have with your students about, when's an appropriate time to have those side conversations, and what is the content of that side conversation?
Yeah, those are definitely some really great tips. And the final tip is just to model best practice. So, if you want your students to be responding respectfully, then model that in the chat. If you want them to be posting certain types of pictures, be a model for your students, because they're going to follow a lot of the examples that you set for them. So shall we go into our question?
Well, we have a question in the chat. It says, have you heard of instances of bullying through distance learning? I have not personally heard of any new ones. When I was in the classroom, we did not do distance learning, and there were plenty of instances where students did inappropriate things online and said inappropriate things online. I remember very specifically, I sent out this Google form, and usually on a Google form, I'll have something at the end saying, is there anything else that you need your teacher to know about X, Y, and Z? And the student had said, yeah, Miss Almerito smells like farts. And I hadn't, for that Google form, I hadn't asked for the students to identify themselves. It was like a reflection form on a lesson. But it was very easy to identify who that student was. Because it was part of homework, and I looked at another form which did ask for identification, and the forms were submitted at very similar times. So I did take that instance to talk to this student and say, okay, well, I think this is you, but I can't tell. Let's have a conversation about, is this really appropriate? What do you think I felt when you said this to me through online? So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to have these digital citizenship conversations with our students as they arise. I think we can go down a huge rabbit hole of saying, what if this happens? I think this is going to happen. Let's have a huge conversation about this happening. I think to some degree, we should trust that our students are going to make the best decisions. And then when they misstep, take that opportunity to say, hey, this was a hurtful comment. And hopefully it didn't go too far where the hurtful comment was so damaging that it ruined a relationship.
Yes, it's definitely about tapping into those teachable moments. And, that's going to happen a lot. Mistakes are going to happen when it comes to all of this. This is new for everybody. It's new for a lot of teachers, and teachers don't exactly know what to do. And that's okay. You could take all of those as learning experiences.
So our second food for thought. What are some possible norms you can set with your students for online communication? Now I'm thinking on the fly. There was that, all over the place I saw these posters with the acronym THINK. I am sure you all have seen it. Now I am looking it up. Think. T, is it true? H, is it hurtful? I, is it illegal or inspiring? N, is it necessary? And K, is it kind? So no need to reinvent the wheel. Those seem like awesome norms that you can bring back to this time.
Yes, that, and I'm going to maybe try and pop that image onto my screen. So yeah. Inspiring, necessary, kind. I like that suggestion.
In the chat, Gail makes a great comment here about citizenship in general. It should be to include digital citizenship and how students are behaving online as well. Totally agree, especially since so many of our students, that's where they live now. That's where they're being the citizen the most, is online. So how can we measure how well they're doing that? Through formal ways too.
Yes. Shall we get into our final tip?
Yes.
Okay. So continue teaching digital citizenship. And what's nice is there's a lot of curriculum out there, and I will show you some of that in just a minute, but the first bullet point actually touches on what we've just been talking about how mistakes will be made and use them as teachable moments. So we've definitely covered that. And, you know, I used to do a lot of presenting on digital citizenship, and instead of presenting on digital citizenship, I started presenting on just the regular topics that I love to present on, like sketchnoting. And I've recently been doing a lot of presentations on integrating math and technology, but always including digital citizenship in those conversations, because really we're using technology tools all the time. We want to model best practice for our students. So teaching them, and maybe even stopping to show them like those times where I am trying to be responsible with technology in just the regular lessons that I like to teach about. So you can always do that when it comes to digital citizenship, but the nice thing is that there is some digital citizenship curriculum that's out there. And I've mentioned Common Sense Education for their privacy evaluations, but it also has whole digital citizenship curriculum for grades K through 12. And the link that I've pulled out right here is their relationships and communication. So if you want to start using some of the Common Sense curriculum for students, they have lessons at every single grade level. And getting them to balance media in kindergarten onto, in 6th grade, there's a lesson for chatting safely online. So these are really important for all students to know, especially as we're starting to learn to move into this digital space.
Sorry, I was looking at the chat here. Jenny added another comment. She says, end the class session with asking how I practice my best self. That builds up our class community. Always. I think the way we build good citizens is by creating a class community that is strong and can rely on each other and can demonstrate to each other, how are we growing in this? I did want to say, in terms of digital citizenship curriculum, there are 2 other, and they're in the resource link, which you'll see the slide for in a bit. One is Google's Be Internet Awesome. That's another option. The second is I Keep Safe. Some more resources online for parents and educators on how to teach digital citizenship to students. I think it should be its own content area where students, as Gail is saying, how are we putting that into our report card? I think it should be a part of, the lessons that we give our students from TK all the way through college.
Yeah, so this is our resource page. So if you need to go to any of the links that we've talked about, we'll give you the link for this so that you have access to all of it. Should we move into our reflection question?
Yeah, final one for the day. So for those of you who are working with students or are going to work with students and you have some anticipations of what may arise, what are current/new issues that you're seeing around digital citizenship? So I have a colleague out in New Jersey, and she said that they are prohibited from using Zoom as a teaching platform for students. And the reasoning that they had was that they were worried about the mandated reporter aspect of it. If they see something in the background of the student's end of what you're seeing on video, that they would have to report. I have to dig a little bit into that, but I think that's a new issue that maybe we haven't really grappled with either, is or something to be aware of as teachers when we see what's happening on the student end. Intellectual property. Yeah, that is truly something that we continue to grapple with, even as people who work primarily with educators and adults, making sure that we are citing our resources accordingly and getting images and materials from places that are not only safe, but are legal to get from.
Yeah, and that really goes a lot back to modeling best practice. So that is one thing that I try and do. I started sketchnoting. So now anytime I draw one little image, I save it on my computer, and those are the things that I like to add to my Google presentations to model that, I'm not just pulling images from anywhere on the internet. I'm actually using a lot of my own photographs that I take. Now I snap pictures of everything when I'm out there, just because it might go well in a Google slide, or any of those images that I'm drawing and I can add into my slide presentation.
Yeah, it's always amazing if you could use your own work. So Gail in the chat also brings up this idea, or the need to help students really create a positive digital footprint for themselves. I think that is such a good key topic, especially as we are going to all online. What does that look like? Especially thinking about when I was in kindergarten, there was nothing that I put online. But now there are kindergartners whose either parents are putting things online about them. I mean, I see people putting stuff about their kids when they're like babies, so for a lot of kids don't even have that choice, but then when they do have the choice, what do they put online? I only get TikTok when my siblings send me the TikTok, so I'm not deep into that world, but I know it looks really crazy. All of it looks really crazy, and that seems like an app that so many students are on.
Yeah, some of their digital footprints started even before they were born, right? Parents posting pictures at the doctor's appointment, right? So, that digital footprint is definitely one that I've been thinking about a lot, and to make students aware of that really from the very beginning. So that is a great tip.
Yeah, we're not seeing it on the news cycle right now because there's just all this coronavirus stuff. But not too long ago, there were a lot of instances of students who had their college admittance revoked because of something that was found online later, and sometimes for good reason, sometimes for not good reason. So I'm not saying that I agree with that happening, but just knowing that helps me inform what I might say to students about, when you have a whole life on there online that a future college admittance officer may see, or someone who will want to hire you or possibly fire you based on what they see online. On the positive end, though, there is one example, and I can't remember the teacher's name, and I even use this in a presentation, where a student did not get into a college that she wanted to, but she had such a positive digital footprint that she had a portfolio of all of her work. She had, was wanting to go into, I believe, communications or advertising, and she couldn't believe she didn't get into this school, and she sent them the portfolio, and they ended up admitting her because of that. And so there's two sides of that coin of, you know, what footprint do you have that can either lend itself to promoting things in your life or really kind of putting a negative lens on your life.
Yeah, and Gail mentions reminding students and teachers to Google themselves. That is a great tip, because you really can have control over your digital footprint if you're going to, you know, make sure that you're going to post really positive things out there, what you want to be known by from other people. So great suggestions.
Yeah, we want to thank those of you who are able to join us live. You all made such great comments and points. And the next slide should be the notes for this. There it is. So this is our third episode, which means we had 2 before. You can just replace the numbers and get to the notes or the slides from the previous ones or future ones. And we invite you to come back on Monday when we talk about how to choose an online learning management system. So we'll be discussing the pros and cons of 3 different systems that are popular these days as we move into this new realm. So again, it'll be me and Jenna, 1 p.m. That link there takes us to the YouTube playlist. These are being recorded and put on YouTube so that others who are not with us live can see it later.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.
See you next time.